Hello everyone. Welcome back to the NintenGems podcast. I am one of your hosts, Jake.
And I am the other host, Brayden.
And together, we make the NintenGems podcast.
What's up?
Which is a podcast where we talk about Nintendo. We're going to talk about Switch games every week, what we've been playing recently, or even we're thinking about doing maybe even some mini throwbacks to like Breath of the Wild, Super Mario Odyssey.
Some of those Switch classics that you know are going to be around for a long time.
That we just haven't talked about yet.
Yeah.
So stay tuned for that. And then towards the end of the show, we talk about a NintenGem, which is a Nintendo game that is not from the Switch generation that we want to highlight and talk about all of our memories and put it in the NintenGems Hall of Fame.
Which has been a work in progress since we started this podcast as well. But at some point, a Hall of Fame will exist.
Oh,
of some
yes,
sort.
please. I want that. I want that badly. So yeah, what have you been playing this week, Brayden?
So this week was kind of a big week in the Nintendo gamer sphere, in that Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition came out for the Switch. It is just a remaster, of the Wii classic Xenoblade Chronicles, which we are going to talk about probably next week. It sounds like we're going to have a special guest.
Yeah, next week we're going to have one of my lifetime friends on. Huge Xenoblade fan. He's eating up Definitive Edition right now, as I know you are.
Yes.
Or at least you're playing it.
I'm slogging through it. That sounds bad, but
I guess it works out because that'll give you a little bit more time.
Yes. It's a massive game.
It is a big game. We would like to talk impressions, but I think we've decided to save that for next week for a more full, in-depth look.
Yes.
So rest assured, we will talk about it.
We will get to Xenoblade.
At length, because if I know Clay, I know he likes Xenoblade. So he's going to have a lot to say about this game.
I'm really looking forward to it, so that's cool.
Side little note about Xenoblade. Did you see the controversy about IGN's review of it?
I didn't, no.
So IGN reviewed it at embargo, which was a few days before the game came out, I think. They gave it an 8 out of 10, but the controversy, I guess, was they mispronounced like everyone's names.
In the review video?
Yeah. So I don't know. Like I said last week, I'm not a Xenoblade guy. I don't know really anything about it, but they mispronounced all the names. From what I've heard, and I talked to Clay about this, so I have insider confirmation, I guess. All of their main issues, like the game is great except for this, are all settings that can be changed and like turned off or turned on or whatever. And they also were like, this game is the best way to experience Xenoblade Chronicles, but, and I sympathize with this because different reviewers probably reviewed all the games, the 3DS version got like an 8.5 or a 9, and the Wii version got a 9, and they give the Switch one an 8.
Wow.
So everyone was like, but you said it was the best version, and yet it's lower than the other versions.
Uh-huh.
So there's been a lot of controversy.
What a hullabaloo.
That. Yeah. I don't know, not a lot. It's just like in the little Xenoblade fandom.
Right.
You know, I guess. But I saw a video about it, and I thought it was interesting. And I would like to, I don't know, just put in that I understand everyone being upset about all of that, but I would say give the website a little bit of slack when it comes to the review scores being different, because I think about that a lot as someone who works for a website, you know, where there have probably been at least, I mean, Noisy Pixel has been around for almost 2 years, and in those 2 years, I would say there's probably been about 15 people that have worked there that have reviewed games, and there is definitely a chance that I review a game that someone reviewed the original, you know, and they're like, wait a minute, you hated this game, but Noisy Pixel gave the first one an 8.5, but you gave it a 5.
Yeah.
What's up with that? And I don't know for sure, but I'm almost positive that's what happened here. I could have egg on my face. I didn't look at this, but I sympathize for that because everyone looks at these, you know, big things as, oh, IGN gave it this.
Right.
And that's
and
what
that
IGN
matters.
thinks. Right. And people, with everything, GameSpot gave it this, Noisy Pixel gave it this. It's a little bit different since we're a podcast, but like NintenGems gave it this, you know.
Yeah.
But I think with that, you got to sympathize a little bit with the individual person. Because I know you and Clay are going to have a lot of talk about Xenoblade, and you're probably going to have at least slightly different opinions.
I think so.
And your rating might even differ by half a point. But both of those are still going to be, quote-unquote, NintenGems opinions, you know? So,
right.
I don't know. I just thought that was an interesting thing to bring up.
Yeah.
And get your, I don't know. What do you think about that whole situation?
That's a really interesting conundrum, and I guess that's more like IGN's prerogative, just how consistent they want to appear and seem. You know, it would have been interesting if they could have gotten the same reviewer that played the game 10 years ago on the Wii or whatever. You know, that would be interesting. And then I think it would be valid to critique the difference in the score. But like you said, different people are going to come away with different results and scores. And so that, I don't know, I'll let them slide.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say about the game.
To your point, I love the game. It is not perfection in my eyes. So yeah, I'm interested to bounce ideas off Clay and see what, you know, if he has rebuttals to my complaints.
I guess we'll see.
All right.
So yeah, I guess I'll go ahead and get into what I've been playing.
Yes.
So I've been playing, in the past week, 2 major games on Switch, and I would consider them both pretty major. I haven't told you the first one yet, but...
It's been in the dark.
I spent a few hours with and reviewed the Outer Worlds on Switch.
That's
the Outer Worlds Switch port. And I feel like I remember talking to you about the Outer Worlds back when it came out originally, and you mentioning you wanted to play it on Switch. Mm-hmm. So I reviewed it for Noisy Pixel. I got it a few days early. I didn't...
Had you played it prior?
Yes. I played it prior, completely beat it, loved it. Mm-hmm. That's why I say a few hours, because I'm not going to act like I played through the whole game on Switch, because I've, you know, been busy. I was working on... I got that game when I was finishing up my Takeover review, so I was still having to play that a little bit.
Yeah.
Which I mentioned last week. So I played probably about 5 to 10 hours of it, and it is not a good port, in my opinion. It's hard to rate ports like this. I did a lot of thought and contemplation about what to give it. I ended up giving it a 7 because it's still a good game. Mm-hmm. Kind of like how I don't think anyone should be playing The Witcher 3 for the first time on Switch, but it's still The Witcher 3.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about the Outer Worlds. Mm-hmm. I literally said that, I think, in my conclusion. If you can play the Outer Worlds literally anywhere else other than Switch, do it, because it's just such a vastly superior experience everywhere else, graphically and technically. But then the core of the game, the story, the gameplay, the combat, which isn't perfect, but I like the amazing dialogue, trees, it's all there. So it was impossible for me to give it a bad rating.
Sure.
And I saw a lot of people still giving it like an 8, an 8.5, because it's the Outer Worlds on Switch. And
it worked. It functioned.
It functions, but it does not function well. I'm telling you, I should show you when we get off. It looks bad.
I saw some pretty garbled screenshots of just textures bleeding together and not ever fully loading, and I don't know.
You should watch the Digital Foundry video on it. Do you know them? They're a big YouTube channel that does like graphics comparisons. Like they'll always do here's Modern Warfare running on PS4 Pro and Xbox Series X, you know, and then also on a high-end PC, you know. And so they have I think they have one where it's a comparison between the Switch version and like a high-end PC, and then they have one where it's compared against the base Xbox One, which is its weakest, the next weakest thing that the game is on, and it still looks like worlds different.
Really?
Yeah, it's a competent port in the sense that it plays the game.
And that some people are going to be playing this game for the first time.
Right. And like I said, all the gameplay, all the story is there, and the best thing in my opinion about the Outer Worlds is its story and its freedom to create your own character, and there's, you know, it's a very, very good RPG. I guess I'll go ahead and get that out of the way. Go play the Outer Worlds. If you have an Xbox, it's on Game Pass. That's how I played it, because it came out, and I don't subscribe to Game Pass every month, but I was like, I can pay $10 for a month of Game Pass, or I can pay $60 to get Outer Worlds on Switch, or on a PlayStation or Xbox. But so, point is, it's on Game Pass, and I think it's $30 right now on PlayStation. An issue that I have with how a lot of people value games is it feels like people quantify how good a game is or what it's worth with how long it is, which I understand in some areas. Like, if I'm paying $60 for a game, I want more than a 5-hour experience.
Sure.
I'll give you that. But, you know, Doom 2016, which, if I'm remembering correctly, you can beat in 6 to 10 hours, the single player mode. At least I think I beat it in around 10 hours, but I've heard people can beat it faster. As opposed to Persona 5 Royal, which is like a 200-hour game. Some people would say, well, Persona 5 is the better game because it's 200 hours for the same price as Doom or Doom Eternal, which is 10 hours. And I don't really like that argument, especially as that argument made a lot more sense when I was in high school and I had a lot of free time. But as someone who, as you can attest, working a full-time job, and I'm a full-time student as well, sometimes it's very nice to have 20 hours, which is digestible. You can beat it in a week or two.
And you can tell they put everything they needed to and not much more. They didn't bloat the game. You know, they really nailed what they were going for. Yeah. And 25 hours, that sounds like a treat to me.
Right. Because it's like, I love Assassin's Creed games, but like they can be so bloated. I platinumed Assassin's Creed Odyssey on PlayStation, and I loved that game, and I loved every minute I put into it, and I fully went for it. But it took me like 90 hours, you know? And Persona 5, I got Persona 5 Royal when it came out March 31st. I'm still making my way through it. It's my like me time game.
Yeah.
And I'm like 45 hours in, and it could take me another 2 months.
Yeah.
2 or 3 months to finish that game. And of course, this is me where my full-time, quote-unquote full-time job is playing video games. So that's a bit of a special case, I guess, because if I was only playing Persona 5, I would have beaten it long ago.
Right.
But all that to be said, it is nice to have bite-sized experiences. It's not even bite-sized. 25 hours is still a long time.
Right.
You know? But it just feels good, you know? It doesn't feel bloated, like you said.
Yeah.
I finished it. I remember when I beat it, when I played it the first time, I was like, oh, did I just beat it? And I was like, nice. Because again, I was playing it for review, but it also wasn't a game that I got a code for. So I was like playing it after. So I was trying to beat it as fast as possible. And I was expecting a like 60-hour Skyrim-esque experience, which you don't get, spoiler alert, but I don't think anyone will be let down.
All right, man. That was tight. That was a tight sales pitch.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I've been wanting to play the Outer Worlds. As a host of a Nintendo podcast, I probably shouldn't be saying this, especially on the podcast. You may have even convinced me not to play it on the Switch, but you have convinced me to go play this game.
I hope I convince you not to play it on the Switch because it's a great game, and if you can only play it on the Switch, it is a way to play it and a way to experience it, and I think you'll still have a good time, but if you can play it anywhere else, you know? Yeah. But I was especially happy when my boss was like, hey, can you review this game on Switch? Because I knew it was going to be an easy review because I was just reviewing the port, so I didn't have to spend another 30 hours on the game. But also, I knew I'd get to talk about it on here.
Yay!
So, and I love. It's always really exciting when games like that get announced for Switch, which is something that is going to completely go away in a year.
The AAA big name titles.
Yeah, like this might not be true, but I'm going to have the hope and assume that at least from the PS5 Series X, all the AAA games are going to be, I think, like Cyberpunk level. And Cyberpunk is a game that will never play on Switch. No. And most of those AAA games will not play on Switch. Which begs the question, Switch Pro. What do you think?
Can we not call it the Switch Pro?
They'll have something smarter than that. Well, I say that, but isn't it the Switch Lite?
Yeah.
So
okay.
That's kind of what everyone thought it might be called. So
I wouldn't mind an upgraded version. I don't feel like the Switch necessarily needs to compete with the Series X, PS5, at least yet. It doesn't seem like that's what Nintendo's going for necessarily.
Yeah.
It seems like they're kind of trying to sweep up the rest of the last gen games and see if they can bring those over to Switch.
And Switch is like the only console now, and I will say only, that completely 100% rests on its Nintendo exclusives, because people can make the argument that PlayStation does the same thing. PlayStation has amazing exclusives, but there are still a lot of people that play PlayStation for Call of Duty and just Call of Duty, and they just like PlayStation better than Xbox because all their friends have it, or they like the color blue better than the color green. So that's just something that is completely unique to Switch, and Nintendo was able to pull themselves out of the Wii U generation and save themselves from becoming a Sega, Isn't it weird? I don't know, just most of my, and again, shows my age, but at this point, most of my gaming life has been Wii On, and since the Wii On, Nintendo has just been a side project, from quote-unquote main gaming.
Right.
And isn't it weird to think about how N64, GameCube, SNES, NES, they were they were direct competitors with everything else. Whereas now, like what you were saying, you don't think they really need to, and they don't, because the Switch is a complementary system. I really think it is. A lot of people, it's the main system. My girlfriend's not a gamer, but she has a Switch. That's all she has. And there are definitely people like that. There are people that are going to be like me when I was a kid, that all I had was a Nintendo. But it sells so well because people like me who have a PlayStation and an Xbox, or even people that have a PC, see Breath of the Wild, or they see Splatoon, or they see Animal Crossing, and they say, oh, I want to get that. And then they do. And it's a complementary system, you know?
I do read a lot about PC Master Race folk that have their Switches, their side piece, like you said.
Yeah, and I also really like the Switch as like an indie system. It's really leaned into that this generation.
Yeah.
It's kind of becoming the uncensored game system.
What do you mean?
So Sony used to always be the system to go to for games that push the line, not like adult games, not adult only,
But bordering on like dating sim type stuff.
Like, oh, this is a Japanese game starring a girl of nebulous age, and she's in skimpy bikinis. I don't know if you've kept up with this, but as someone who's also in the PlayStation ecosystem, PlayStation is cutting down on that and is like, nope, we are censoring. And Nintendo, oddly enough, in an un-Nintendo move, is not. And so now there's a lot of games, I can't think of any off the top of my head because that'd be too convenient. But Nintendo is the one now where there are some of these games that are coming out, and the only place on a console to play them uncensored, like in their full original form, is on the Switch.
That's bizarre. I've been out of that loop.
I mean, I'm not in that loop. I'm like tangentially in it because I enjoy anime, but I don't really play those kinds of games. But there are games like that have come to Switch. Like I was saying, Sony used to be the system for that, and now it's become the Switch.
Yeah.
So like another whole conversation is, with past console generations, you can say the GameCube generation, and that also includes Xbox, PlayStation 2, or you can say N64 generation, or you can say a generation, and it all equals, but you can't do that anymore. The Wii U existed for a hot moment in the beginning of the PlayStation and the Xbox One, and then it died, and then in the middle of this console generation, they just said, here's the Switch.
Yep.
And I think the Switch is supposed to have anywhere from, I think it's probably going to be around for like 7 years. 5, I think between 5 and 10, I think. So by the time we get the next Switch, it's going to be halfway through PS5 and Xbox One's life cycle. So it's like, what generation is this?
That's so interesting.
Because it's like this system is cool, and Nintendo has a way of making their games just look good. Even though I know that this is not nearly as powerful as a PlayStation 4 or an Xbox One, and it won't come close to a PS5, but I know Breath of the Wild 2 is still going to look as good, or it's still going to feel as good, and it won't look noticeably worse than Horizon Zero Dawn 2 or Bloodborne 2 or God of War 2,
Do you think that's an implicit bias? I don't think that's the right term. Is that a purchaser's bias?
I don't think so.
Or does Nintendo really just know how to make their own games look good on their own hardware?
I think Nintendo just knows how to work with their hardware, Because like, I've recently gotten back into Splatoon 2 because I was with one of my friends and we were hanging out, and he was like, hey, do you want to play Splatoon? I've been back into it. And we both forgot it was the Return Splatfest weekend. So we got on and it was like, oh my God, Mayo versus Ketchup. And so it like got me like back into it. So I've been playing it in my spare time. And that game looks amazing, dude. I think that game looks so good. And Nintendo just knows how to work their hardware. Same way Animal Crossing looks great,
Oh, yeah.
And there are definitely moments where you can see this isn't as good as it could look if it was running on a PlayStation or a PC. But most of the time it's like, oh man, this game looks beautiful,
Yeah.
I guess my point is saying that the Switch is probably on the level, if not a little bit better than a 360 or a PS3. All of Nintendo's games, I think, look better than any game that was ever on a 360 or a PS3.
I would agree with that.
Cool. Yeah, so that was, like I said, a bit of a tangent, but I thought an interesting tangent. Hope you guys liked that conversation.
I think it's nice to break away from specific games and, just talk about the video game industry as a whole.
Yeah. But now let's, I guess, get back into specific games.
Yes.
And we'll talk about the second game that I've been playing this week.
It's almost like you've been playing like 52 games.
You could say that.
Wow.
It's not a, I wouldn't call it a big Nintendo game, but it is a Nintendo published game. So I felt obligated to get it as a Nintendo fan. I'm really glad I'm not living in the Wii U era, because I feel like I would be one of those guys that felt obligated to buy all the games.
Yeah.
And then I'd be buying I'd be paying $60 for like Amiibo Festival and, Mario Tennis, whatever that one was. That was terrible. But yeah, okay. The game is Clubhouse Games 51 Worldwide Classics.
I first heard about this game just a couple weeks ago. Nintendo, since they haven't been doing their directs, they have just been dropping kind of these random trailers for games that are coming out in the near future, Paper Mario being a big example just a couple weeks ago, and they did the same thing for this Clubhouse Games, and I watched that 3 or 4 minute trailer where it went through all 51 games, and I don't know, I haven't picked this up yet. What have been your impressions?
So, funny enough, I will say this caught my attention because it was in the last direct that they did.
Oops.
It was, and I was like, what is this? Because I'm always in for games you can only play on Switch, I don't know. And I don't think I knew at the time that it was a Nintendo game. Point is, it got my attention because it looked cool. And I also watched that trailer that you watched that was like, here's a spotlight of every game for like 5 seconds, just to show what every game is, because the folks at Noisy Pixel don't work with the folks at Nintendo yet. So it was my own purchase decision.
Personal pickup.
Yeah. So watching that video made me go, I gotta get this. I gotta check this out. And I am so glad that I did, because I think it is a fantastic little compilation of 52 games, not 51. Well, 51 games and a piano.
Yeah, okay.
That you can mess around with. So Clubhouse Games is 51 worldwide classics, and those 51 worldwide classics are, here we go. Can I do this in one take? I'm going to take a swig of water. Mancala, Dots and Boxes, Yacht Dice, 4 in a Row, Hit and Blow, 9 Men's Morris, Hex, Checkers, Hare and Hounds, Gomoku, Dominoes, Chinese Checkers, Ludo, Backgammon, Renegade, Chess, Shogi, Mini Shogi, Hanafuda, Richie Mahjong, which I definitely didn't say right, Last Card, Blackjack, Texas Hold'em, President, Sevens, Speed, Matching, War, Takoyaki, Pig's Tail, Golf, Billiards, Bowling, Darts, Carom, whatever that is. Toy tennis, toy soccer, toy curling, toy boxing, toy baseball, air hockey, slot cars, fishing, battle tanks, team tanks, shooting gallery, 6-ball puzzle, sliding puzzle, Mahjong solitaire, Klondike solitaire, spider solitaire, and a piano.
Woo! Wow.
Yeah.
That's quite a list.
That is quite a list.
A handful in there that I don't recognize, and I think it's mostly the ones that you stumbled on. But other than that, like I do recognize most of those.
So the cool thing about this game, well, one of the cool things about this game is it is worldwide classics. So it does have games from all over the world, quote unquote. And I was gonna say maybe that was just their excuse to put in a bunch of Japanese games, like shogi, But this is a great way to experience games that you've never played before.
So Jake and I, before we started, we just went through a couple games. He beat my butt in checkers, but then, he beat my butt in table air hockey.
I'll get out of the way and say they were both very close games. I think we're both terrible at checkers. And so it was a nail-biting game of which bad player is going to win. And you had me like 4-1 in air hockey, and
and he made the comeback.
Somehow able to make the comeback.
Regardless, the checkers did seem to offer guided moves for those that may not know how to play. And so Mahjong, it's been a long time since I've played that. If I were to open that up, would it walk me through it pretty well?
Yeah, absolutely. Pretty much all the games have an assist mode that tell you, even like games that I would consider not easy, but like I know poker well. And even with Texas Hold'em, there's an assist mode that will be like, hey, this is a pair, or you have nothing. And so, yeah, it does do a good job. It does do a good job of walking you through kind of all the new games that you haven't played. And you can totally turn all that off and skip all the little intros and how to plays for games that you are familiar with, which is really cool. I've seen some people online saying the game is too simple. And I disagree. I think 52 games, you're not going to get a huge amount of depth with anything. Some of the simplicity I like, such as in the games that I don't know, it would be weird to have a really in-depth shogi experience and be overwhelmed and be like, whoa, when I just am learning how to play shogi.
Sure.
Or Chinese checkers or Hanafuda. But it does hurt in games that I love, like Texas Hold'em, which is, Brayden and I played a game of Texas Hold'em, and
both of the computers wiped the floor with us.
yeah, and I'll get into that. Like Texas Hold'em, it feels too simple to me because, as I was telling you earlier, I really like playing poker in a way that's like, I'm going to make you go all in. You know what I mean? Especially if I win big the turn and I have $200 or 200 chips and you've got 50, then I'm much more apt to put in just 60, to bet 60 to make you go all in or fold.
Right.
And in this game, you can't do that. You can only bet five chips at a time, and you can only bet more if people raise, which is a little disappointing. But it's simple Texas Hold'em. It's not in depth. It's an easy way to play. Like I was saying to you earlier, it's a version of Texas Hold'em you could play with anyone. You could play with your 6-year-old cousin or anyone who's not into Texas Hold'em, and then maybe you figure out, oh my gosh, I love Texas Hold'em. Hey, go out and buy a deck of cards. Or there's all kinds of poker games that you can play, you know?
Yeah.
And that's pretty the same with all of these. One of the only other games that the simplicity I felt hurt was I think the game that convinced me to buy this, which was bowling. Because I saw it and I was like, Wii Sports 2.0,
Heck yeah.
which we'll talk about. It is a bit simple in the fact that one of my major complaints with the game is when you have one system, the amount of players is locked to 2.
Okay.
So that works for most of these games because games like Mancala,
Plenty of them just are naturally 2-player games.
dots and boxes, chess, checkers, 2-player games, air hockey, 2 players. There are a handful of games like bowling, darts, even you could play with 4 players, Texas Hold'em, all those. There are a handful of games that feel like you should be able to play with 4 players, and you just can't unless you have 4 switches.
Not even 2 switches will do?
No, because that's something that I like about this game as well. Is it harkens back to the days of Mario Kart DS and Metroid Prime Hunters, where you need one person with the game.
You're on the school bus, on the way to your field trip, the whole bus has their DSs, everyone's on download play.
Exactly.
Slamming Mario Kart.
Exactly. Or it's every single day at extended care, and you and the 3 other misfits whose parents don't love them enough to pick them up after school sit around playing Mario Kart DS every day, which is what I did.
Drawing boobies in PictoChat.
Exactly. So when I saw that, I was like, that's so cool. But then also you remember that DSs were cheaper and everybody had a DS and not everybody's going to have a Switch.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that I noted is this could become a staple of house parties if you have 3 friends who have Switches.
It can be a little difficult to make happen in real life.
But, dude, this is the perfect couples game because even if you have 1 Switch or 2 Switches, which I'm lucky enough that my girlfriend does have a Switch, so we were able to play, like when you're playing with 2 people on one console, like you can't play Texas Hold'em because you both need to have your own cards, but since she has her own Switch, we're able to play Texas Hold'em. Having 2 Switches and 2 people lets you play everything multiplayer. Sure. Everything that is multiplayer, which is all of the games but 1. There's like a puzzle game. Well, all the games but 3 because you can't play solitaire with someone else.
Right.
There's 2 solitaire games. There might be another mahjong. The point is, most of the games have 2 players. So it's like the perfect couples game, and it is a good party game, but only if everybody has a Switch. You know?
Yeah.
Which is a bit disappointing, because I thought this could be the next big Wii Sports, which is, everybody's here. Even though you can only play 4 players, you're still going to pull it out. People will switch in and out. 4 feels like enough.
Right.
2 is not enough, which is disappointing.
So I am curious, did you play the original Clubhouse games on the DS?
I had no idea it existed before reviewing this game.
I didn't play it. I remember seeing it on the shelves and stuff at GameStop. And as a kid, this kind of thing would never have struck my interest.
Oh, no.
I wanted Zelda and Mario and Halo and all that. Like, I didn't want solitaire and, knitting.
And it's kind of weird that now this excites us.
I know, right,
You
right.
know?
And so I don't know if that is a growing up thing or just a sign of the times that, maybe people want to go back to some simpler means of gaming. I never did play the DS version, but I am very, very much looking forward to finding uses for this one.
Right. And I will say, before we get off the topic, local play works perfectly. Very little lag. We played a round of Texas Hold'em. I'm sure you could tell it went completely well.
Yeah.
Online play has gone flawlessly for me. And I do suggest that for 4-player games of chance, you do play online play because the CPU is broken, dude. It's so broken. For instance, I love Uno. And this game has Uno in it, but it's called Last Card. And it's literally just Uno. But when you play against CPUs, in a lot of these games, the CPUs have difficulty levels. So normal, hard, advanced, extreme, or impossible, something like that.
Yeah.
Which, spoiler alert, in games of chance at least, mean nothing. Because I sat watching... I sat on my Switch in handheld mode playing Last Card for an hour and a half while me and my girlfriend watched Parks and Recreation, playing against 3 CPU players that were on normal difficulty, and it took me an hour and a half to win.
Multiple rounds? Like multiple matches?
Over and over. I think I played like 50.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, I'm not giving up. Like, they are on normal difficulty. Like, what the heck? And I'm telling you, dude, the computer cheats because you played Uno before, right?
Yeah.
So you've got 2 cards in your hand, and you got to get to 0 cards. The CPU has 2 cards, and they play a wild card. And the color is orange, and they play red. And so I've got, I don't know, 3 cards, or even 2 cards in my hand, and one of them being a wild card. And the other one is not the color that they just played. So they just played red. And I'm like, okay, so they've got a red. I'm going to change it to blue. And I change it to blue, and the final card in their hand is blue. And it's like, what?
I see.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Why would they do that? Or the color will be orange, and they'll play a wild card, but the color they'll choose is orange again. So it's just orange again, you know? They'll do... Every time I lost... I mean, it is a game of chance, so of course you're going to lose to easy, quote-unquote, CPUs sometimes. Yeah. But, like... Really? That's so unrealistic. Like, that doesn't happen.
Right.
Like, that was the computer cheating. You know, or at least that's how it felt to me. And there's another game called Ludo, which is just basically Sorry. And my girlfriend, Haley, and I have played that like 4 times. And we just got our butts handed us by the CPUs every single time because it's a game based on dice roll. And they just seem to always just kill us.
They nail where they need to go.
Yeah, so in those games, which all of those games you can play completely 4 players online. I've had 0 latency, and it works really well, and I think it's a good way to do it. You know?
Yeah.
And you can also do it with friends. If you happen to have 4 friends, or 3 friends that have the game, you can play it online with them. So yeah, little issues. Also, not all of the games are winners. I'm sure I heard you say this is another one of my little complaints. And all of these, I talk at length. You know, I'm talking at length, so it makes it sound like, well, these are big issues, but they're really not. I gave the game an 8 out of 10. I think it's amazing. But it's really weird seeing toy tennis, toy soccer, toy curling, toy boxing, and toy baseball right next to golf, billiards, bowling, and darts, which feel like semi-full versions of those sports, where you've got all these toy tennis, toy soccer, you know, toy boxing, toy baseball at least. Who cares about curling, I guess. But I'm sure someone does. I'm sorry to offend all of my curling fans out there. But those are all as if... So, like, toy soccer is basically like foosball, you know? And let me tell you, man, that does not work on a controller. Like, it was impossible. I was like, what the heck? Toy baseball is just like one of those little games where you pull it. It's like, you know, you pull the pinball back to shoot it, and then you have a little guy, you press A to...
Yeah.
And it just feels weird and unfair because you've got the little, like, outers who move on their own, or the outfielders that move on their own. So all of the outs that you get, I just don't feel fair.
Yeah.
Same with toy boxing. Toy boxing is like Rock'em Sock'em Robots, basically. So, you know, all of these games are, like, fine. Toy tennis is, like, the same way.
It helped them get up to the 51.
Right. They're all, like, fine, but you're not really going to be playing these with other people, and by yourself, you're not going to play them for more than a few minutes.
Yeah.
But it's just really weird when you look at tennis, specifically tennis, boxing, and baseball, because, like, toy soccer, okay. A full mini soccer game would be difficult. I get that.
And foosball, like, that's a realistic board game, you know.
Right.
Clubhouse
Same with
game.
toy curling, like, okay. But with tennis, boxing, and baseball, you had simple versions of those in Wii Sports, which we're going to talk about. And then you've got bowling here, which is a little bit more simple than other bowling things that we've seen in, like, other Wii Sports games. But you've got billiards, which feels like a full pool game.
Really?
And you've got, I mean, not, you know, It's still simple,
Yeah.
but it feels like pool. And bowling feels like bowling, and darts feels like darts. Darts is like the best game, by the way. I just love it's so cool, like throwing the dart. I don't know. I've had a lot of fun with darts. But it just feels like they could have put this game out a month later and given us simple versions of at least tennis, baseball, and boxing that are reminiscent of their Wii Sports predecessors that were just simple. And it would have, like what I said in my reviews, it would have pushed this game into Wii Sports level of like, you need this.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So that was a bit disappointing.
It's interesting. Why do you think they chose some games over others? Because I'm sure they had to pare down 251.
Dude, I mean, it really feels like they've got almost all of the quote-unquote generic essentials.
And I guess to even convert, like, Sorry into a generic...
Yeah, but
that's
the thing about that is that existed before Sorry. Like, Sorry, like, Ludo was a thing, and I didn't know that.
That's funny. I forgot you said it's Ludo.
Right.
And that you're right. That is, like, a real...
Right. But it just feels like Sorry. It just feels like Sorry. And the same, I think Uno really was. I don't know if quote-unquote last card existed before Uno, but it's just Uno, So there are a few generic versions of that. But one little cool thing for like single players is each of the games has a medal system, like little achievements. And they're very simple. It's like win once or like beat all of the CPU levels. You know what I mean? So, but it's cool when you play a game enough times, you'll get a little gold medal. It's like you mastered Texas Hold'em.
Yeah.
So it's like a little another extra little thing to do. And the more medals you get, I don't know how many there are because I haven't mastered all of them. But there's like a globe that you can look at, and there are like little minifigures on the globe. And when you go to them, it's like, this is Janet, and her recommendations for worldwide games are these 5 games. It's I don't know. It felt kind of pointless, but sometimes it'll be like, Williams arrived on the board and he has a present. And so like you go to it and it was like, here are some Mario themed playing cards. And so now for all the playing card games.
Oh, cool.
Like you saw, I think when we played
Hold'em.
Texas Hold'em, yeah, they were like Mario cards.
Well, that is neat.
Yeah. I don't know how many extra little bonuses there are like that, but they're little... If you're playing by yourself, there's little perks to kind of try and do everything, so that way you can impress people when they come over.
Yeah. What do you think about the little menu people?
Oh yeah, I was going to talk about that.
It almost makes me a little uncomfortable, and they did even in that trailer that they released with all 51 games. It was like the little people on the screen telling you about the games, and they're like almost realistic. Like
I don't know. I feel like they look like game pieces. Like they look like board game pieces. And I think that's what they're going for.
Yeah.
So before you start
model trains. They look like model train characters.
Right.
That's a good way to put it.
Before you start every single game, every single time, this is a bit annoying because it plays every single time and it's easy to skip, but a little cutscene plays that's kind of a how-to of how to play, and also kind of just like these cast of 4 characters playing these games. And they're cute little funny moments about, these people go back and forth. There's like an adult woman, an adult man, and a little girl and a little boy, and there's cute little interactions before them. I like them. I don't know.
Okay.
It reminds me of Labo. If you ever played with Labo, like when you're building Labo, they have little funny quips that go along and like little fun, so it reminded me a lot of that.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I liked it. I thought it gave the game personality.
Sure.
Honestly. And I think that's what makes this game worth buying almost, is you can feel the Nintendo polish. Even though it's not developed by Nintendo, it's a Nintendo published game. Oh, and it is developed, the game is developed by NDQ, which are the current developers of the Mario Party series. So the same people that developed Super Mario Party, Mario Party 10, and Mario Party 9 developed this game. So it is a like Nintendo developer. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. In-house, I guess you might call it.
And you can feel it. And I think that's why I also noted, like, when I see this, when you see Clubhouse Games 51 games, it makes me think of all those shovelware games that were on the Wii that were like 30 family games and they were all like $20 to $40, so people would buy them because they were cheap and they were just terrible. This is not one of those games. You know, you feel the Nintendo polish, and I think it's worth playing.
Nice. Well, cool. I'm glad it's a fun collection.
Yeah, this is the Jake Rambles episode of the podcast. I feel like, because
we're learning a lot though.
But yeah, if you've got $40 sitting around and you have maybe a partner sitting around that wants to play games with you, or a best friend, or even if you just want to play games online and you're itching for that multiplayer experience on Switch, or if you've got a player too, I think this is the perfect game.
It sounds like it.
And even if you don't, it's still a lot of fun. It's $40 at launch. It is published by Nintendo, so it'll probably sit there for forever. Because I could be like, I think it's good for $40, but also it'd be better for 20 or 30. But like
40's right where it needs to be, probably.
40's probably where it's going to stay, just because it's Nintendo.
Yeah, right.
But I don't know. There's a chance it'll go on sale, and I think it's worth $40. And if you can find it for cheaper, it's extra worth it. Good. That was a fun little game that was not. It was like on my radar, but I forgot about it, and then I just remembered that it was coming out. Like,
I was so surprised when you just texted me that picture out of the blue, but I was so happy. I don't know. It's
because, cool. I don't know. It's just like I was reminded of its existence out of the void, and was like, whoa, a Nintendo published game is coming out. I have to check this out, and I'm glad I did.
Very good. So rolling out of a sort of collection of mini games, I guess you could almost say. They are, full-sized games, but it's a good time to move on into our NintenGem, would you say?
Yeah, I think so. So we like tying our NintenGem into our main topic somehow. We won't always, but I think it's fun to try and do that. So we were racking our brain about what game we wanted to talk about, and we decided on Wii Sports.
Which is an interesting choice, I think, because it's not a game that anyone exactly went out and bought. It's a game that came with everyone's Wii. And so if you had a Wii, theoretically you had Wii Sports. And so everybody's played this.
Yeah, and it's on like the list of the highest selling games of all time, and it's like, that feels like a cop-out.
Right, it's kind of cheating, but yeah, so if you're unaware of what we're talking about, Wii Sports was bundled with the Wii throughout, I believe, the entire Wii's lifespan. Every console that was sold was bundled with Wii Sports.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure even if you got a special bundle, like I know there were some bundles that came with like Mario Galaxy or like New Super Mario Brothers Wii, I'm pretty sure all of those also came with Wii Sports.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so Wii Sports was a compilation game it did not have 52 games, but it had 5. Tennis, baseball, bowling, golf, and boxing.
I tried to list that off like 3 times, and it didn't work, so I got Jake to do it. But all 5 were actually very different from one another. It didn't feel like you were just doing the same actions over and over. And each sport fully utilized the Wii's brand new motion controls that no other video game consoles had attempted before. The Wii was obviously revolutionary in its, I almost said Joy-Con, but it's the Wiimote nunchuck. And so for boxing, you would plug in your nunchuck and you would have to mimic your punching. I don't know how in-depth Clubhouse Games takes some of these actions, but tennis, you would swing your Wiimote like a tennis racket. Golf would expect you to swing it over your shoulder, and it goes on. But these were really mind-blowing uses of the Wii's technology that Nintendo was obviously trying to show off at the time, and then it just turned into actually quite a popular game over the years that I know it got us through a whole lot of parties.
Yeah, and like you were saying, looking back on the original Wii's motion controls, they're pretty primitive, because, even halfway-ish through the Wii's lifespan, we got Wii Motion Plus, which improved it a lot. And then, especially when you compare it to like the VR technology we have now, especially with like the Vive, like the HTC Vive and Oculus and stuff, it's really primitive. But in 2007, it was like you said, it was like mind-blowing. And the coolest thing about Wii Sports is the Wii was incredibly popular, I would say in part due to Wii Sports, because it was one of the first gaming consoles that everyone needed, quote unquote. Everyone wanted it. My grandparents, my 65-year-old at the time grandparents had a Wii, because everybody sees this and is like, that looks like fun. And everyone knows tennis, everyone knows baseball, and everyone knows bowling, and everyone knows golf, and everyone knows boxing. And you didn't have to, none of these, even though they were like motion, it wasn't crazy, You could not have, you didn't have to be fit.
You're not going to throw your shoulder out playing tennis.
Right. You definitely could, because you can get into it, but you don't have to.
That's true. I guess I saw some broken TV screens and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
I've definitely almost broken TV screens from bowling, because I wouldn't listen and I wouldn't put on the like wrist strap. I still do that with the Joy-Cons.
Yeah.
Sometimes when my girlfriend and I were playing darts on 51 Clubhouse Games, we had to make sure we had those on.
Is that right?
And there was one time that she threw it and it came out of her hand, and we were like, "Thank goodness you had that on." But yeah, it was one of the first games. I would wager to say, maybe outside of Tetris on the Game Boy in the 90s, or in 1989, this was like the first game where it's like everybody needed it, regardless of age.
I think, so Wii Fit coming down the line obviously blew this idea up, but Wii Sports managed to capture the idea that it is almost exercise.
Side note, did you know that the game Wii Sports Club on Wii U is just a high-definition remake of Wii Sports?
I had no idea.
Sorry, I'm sitting on the Wikipedia page for Wii Sports.
And it's on the Wii U, you said?
Yeah, Wii Sports Club, which I knew there was a Wii Sports game on Wii U, but no, it's literally just, it's a high definition, quote unquote, remake, which weirdly enough makes me want to check it out.
I know.
You know?
Boxing in HD.
Right. Sorry, that was a complete aside.
No, you're fine. Did you ever play Wii Play?
Of course, because that was out around the launch and it was, the price of a Wiimote and it came with a game.
Absolutely.
That's why so many people bought Wii Play, which I don't think Wii Play is ever really worth having a gym episode on because it's not very good. So I guess we can talk about it here, but I don't remember enough about Wii Play to really talk about it. But
I just remember being disappointed in comparison to Wii Sports.
Right. But that was another, that felt like the part 2 game. That felt like the Wii Sports Part 2, as in, everybody had it, because it came with the Wiimote.
Wii Motion Plus, right?
No, it was just a Wiimote. Wii Motion Plus didn't come out until Wii Sports Resort, which was 2009.
I recall that.
Yeah, so Wii Play just came with a regular Wiimote.
Dang.
But it was either the same price or $5 more expensive, $5 or $10 more expensive, so everybody bought it. I know we did, because,
Yeah.
Because everyone thought you were going to get Wii Sports 2, or Wii Sports but not Sports, and a Wiimote.
Right.
Which, you didn't. But, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, that was out of nowhere, but I just remember being disappointed because I wanted Wii Sports too.
Right. And Wii Sports was not a complicated, in-depth game, It wasn't, while a lot of people probably only had Wii Sports for a time, it was not a game that you would sit with. It's not like...
Ring Fit Adventure.
It's not like Ring Fit Adventure, which is sold out everywhere, and I want it so bad, and I'm so mad I didn't have it in quarantine, because now quarantine's pretty much, whether you agree with it or disagree with it, we're having to go back to our normal lives. And I had all these months of sitting around inside, and I would have killed to mess around with Ring Fit Adventure, but I couldn't. The point is, Ring Fit Adventure is more of a real game. Wii Sports is not that. It really is just a small collection of mini games that probably, if it sold on its own, would have been a $20, $30 game.
Right. To stick with your Ring Fit Adventure comparison, I do think Ring Fit Adventure has goals and almost a story. There are achievements to be made.
Right.
Whereas Wii Sports, there's nothing. You just play the sport.
Right. Exactly. But these sports do feel fleshed out enough where they don't feel like mini games in a minigame collection like the games in Clubhouse Games do, which isn't a huge knock on Clubhouse Games, but you can feel that bowling on Clubhouse Games doesn't feel as good as Wii Sports bowling.
Sure.
And that's why I was saying, when I was talking about the simplicity of that game, I would have liked for them to had Wii Sports level versions in this, because like I was saying, it would have made it you need this game.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because Wii Sports was, it was if you have a Wii, you need to play Wii Sports, because it's undeniably a ton of fun.
Absolutely. What was your favorite sport? Do you recall?
Bowling. Easy.
Really?
Yeah, dude, I didn't even have to think about it.
Did you ever throw the ball backwards and get all the little the memes
and they go,
do?
Yeah.
Do the little jump and spin.
Wii Sports is really special to me because, like I said, my whole family was able to play it, and they actively wanted to. So I have very fond memories of playing Wii Sports, not only with my parents, but also with my grandparents, where we would all gather around the TV at my childhood home, and specifically bowling was the one that we all loved. So I have so many fond memories of playing bowling. Since the Wii wasn't perfect, I used to walk away with my remote to go to the bathroom, and my parents would be like, Jake, it's your turn. And in the bathroom, I would like bowl and I would get like strikes from the bathroom. And they'd be like, what are you doing? And I thought I was like the coolest kid, you know, because I'd be in the other room getting strikes or whatever. I don't know. I have a lot of really special memories for that. So bowling is definitely my favorite. What about you?
I'm going to have to go with, based on my memories, boxing, because that was high competition right there. I just remember like getting into heated, I won't say arguments over boxing, but you know, like I remember it feeling powerful and dynamic. I remember me getting punched and like the remotes vibrating and like, I don't know. I just remember a whole lot of tension to the boxing game, both 1-player and 2-player. So I kind of have to say, I think that's my favorite.
Boxing is the one where you really get a workout. At least little kid me did, because I would like flail my arms.
Right.
You know what I mean? Oh, and this was another one of the first games that kind of introduced putting you in the game, you know? Because it had the Miis. They weren't perfect recreations of your person, but it felt like, oh, there's me. There I go. Like, it's not generic man 1 and generic woman 2 or generic person. You know, it's like there's my me and there's grandpa's me and there's mom's me. You know what I mean?
Well, and I remember that being cool. Like, you could go over to your friend's house and then bring your me back in. You know, you would keep your me at your friend's house and then you could bring them. They were always there.
Right.
And so, yeah, it is, like you're saying, that is a neat feature.
Yeah, so that's just another cool thing that I think, another reason why Wii Sports was just so appealing. Yeah, like I was saying, they're not complicated, but I don't think they had to be. They were perfect for what they were, and they were just a ton of fun.
So this is tangentially related to Wii Sports, but it's more of just kind of a fun little Easter egg that I'm sure you're familiar with. But are you familiar with Totaka's song?
Yes, I am.
For those uninitiated, Totaka's song is a song, it's more like a little tune by Kazumi Totaka, who is a composer for Nintendo. If I'm not mistaken, he wrote the Kirby music, a lot of the original and most famous Kirby music, Animal Crossing. And what he does, he hides a 19-note 8-bar melody in the games that he's worked on. And Wii Sports is actually one of the few games that Totaka's song has been found in. I think there's about a dozen to 15 games that this little tune has been found in. And I thought it was interesting that Wii Sports was one of them.
Yeah. Did you know he was the sound director on Animal Crossing New Horizons? So I
didn't.
I wonder if Totaka's song is in that. Probably is.
Somewhere. And sometimes it's built into other songs, and sometimes you have to sit on a menu for 10 minutes and then it'll play. I remember a few years back, my brother and I going through all their games, trying to find the songs ourselves. But
yeah, that's a cool little Easter egg.
Yeah, just some video game lore, some, whatever.
Like I said, it's not a deep game, but it's an important game. And it's an important game to a lot of people. This game was a lot of people's only interaction ever with video games. Like, meaningful interaction.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Other than, like, I guess I don't want to say only, because I'm sure a lot of those same people played Just Dance and played other sports games on the Wii, and but I know so many people that got a Wii, everyone had a Wii, and have never bought a game system since,
To your point, the amount of people that come into Target asking where the Wii games are,
Still,
that, yes, people are still entirely gaming on their Wiis.
They do still have Just Dance 2020 at Target. I was there yesterday and I saw it.
For the Wii or Wii U?
The Wii. Did you not know that?
I knew it was the last game produced for the Wii.
You want to hear this? The funniest thing about this, if you can really tell how dead the Wii U is, Just Dance has been coming out. They've said 2020 is the last game that's going to come out on Wii. The last Just Dance game. But they've been releasing it every year. So for a while, it was Just Dance 2016 on, Wii and Wii U. And then 2017 to 2018, 2019 was Switch, Wii, Wii U. 2020, it was Switch and Wii. They skipped Wii U. They did not port it to Wii U.
That's hilarious.
Which is funny.
They would have just lost money. I mean,
probably.
Just straight up money hole.
Yeah, because like you said, and I never really got that. I mean, for fans of the podcast, you might know that we both worked at Target. When I worked heavily at Target, I never had anyone ask me about the Wii, but we had people come in all the time when I worked at GameStop just to buy our Wii games, like our used Wii games. A surprising, insane amount of people. So yeah, there are still people out there that still just play their Wii, mostly of 40 plus, I would say.
It's probably the game system that's at grandma's, but
Yeah, this game, along with, games like that. But I'm sure there are definitely people where, specifically like grandparents, this was their one experience with the video games.
yeah.
That wasn't, get off the darn Nintendo, why are you shooting people in the Halo, stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was, oh, I'm going to play this too, and I enjoy this. Like I said, like my grandparents would bring it up and be like, let's play bowling tonight, which was cool. And I ate that up when I was younger.
Sure.
And the neatness, quote unquote, of that has not been lost on me.
Yeah.
So I'd say, and I'm sure you agree, that's why this is a NintenGem.
Wii Sports is a true NintenGem.
Do you have any closing thoughts or anything else about Wii Sports?
I hope that if you haven't played it before, you can go scrounge up a Wii in Wii Sports and give it a shot. And if you have played it before, go pop it in.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, I think that might be all we have.
Yeah, I think that'll do that for us.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sticking along, listening to us ramble about our favorite games.
Make sure to follow us on Facebook. I'm going to probably set us up a Twitter, maybe an Instagram. I don't know, but right now we're on Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
So like us on Facebook. Follow us on Apple Podcast and Spotify and Podbean. And I think that'll do it for us.
That sounds good to me.
Also, I guess if you want to follow me, I have a Twitter, jyoder1624 on Twitter. I make tweets. You want to hear my hot tweets?
Yeah.
I've recently made a Twitter comeback.
Oh, yeah?
From the words of Jake Yoder.
Dun, dun, dun.
May 27th. Billy Hatcher for Smash, Sakurai. The people demand it.
That's a hot tweet.
That's a gem. We'll talk about Billy Hatcher.
Wow.
Dun-dun-dun. June 3rd. I think about Shikamaru a lot. Dun-dun-dun. Did you ever watch Naruto?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know Shikamaru.
Dun-dun-dun. June 7th. Snakes are misunderstood and just want to be loved.
Aww.
Dun-dun-dun. April 17th. How do you marry Sable from Animal Crossing? Asking for myself, not a friend. So for hot tweets like that, retweets about my reviews from Noisy Pixel, follow me on Twitter, jyoder1624, for fun times. You should get in on that, Braden, old man Braden.
Twitter's hard and scary. You kids, get off my lawn. Yeah, so follow us on all those social media and podcasting platforms. We also have an email. It's nintengems@gmail.com. Please send us some comments, suggestions, even yell at us.
That would be so neat. I would love to have fan mail.
That would be neat, guys. So consider it.
Yeah, I think that'll do it for us, guys.
All right, thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you next time. My name is Braden.
And I'm Jake.
And this is NintenGems.
See you guys.